everyone. Thank you for tuning in this evening to Enter the Room. We're so happy for our viewing audience to join us this evening for this lovely dynamic duo. We have a wonderful treat this evening. And some of you may have known Mr. Rodrick Dixon appeared was it a week ago, Rodrick? About a week. Yeah, about a week ago. He's here in Los Angeles performing at LA Opera. They're doing a double bill of Highway 1 USA as well as The Dwarf. And Mr. Dixon here is playing The Dwarf. I've seen the performance. It is fabulous. Both productions are fabulous. I would encourage any and everyone who's in Los Angeles, if you're going to be here between now to March 17th, to please get you a ticket if you can while they still, I think they may have a few tickets, few more, but either way, I will tell you, please, it's worth your time heading down to Dorothy Chandler Theater. But we're also have a special guest as well joining him tonight, and that is his lovely wife, Miss Alfreda Burke, who is also a phenomenal songstress as well. She hails from my hometown, Chicago, Illinois. We call it Chi-Town, and she's here on vacation here, joining her husband. But she too is a dynamic singer as well. She studied, she attended Lindblom High School. I have to throw that out there. She probably says that. But she also graduated from Roosevelt University as well as Chicago College of Performing Arts School. Did I get it right?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, great. And she has a bachelor's and a master's from both of these institutions. She has studied music extensively. She grew up in the church. Her father and parents were in the ministry. They had their own church, and her life has just flourished from childhood all the way up to adulthood. She met her lovely husband, who also comes from a very sacred background as well. These are children that were raised in the household of faith, who are adults now. And from there in her life, she's performed, oh my gosh, I was reading your bio, and I'm just going to throw out a few things because this is very, very long. But she's performed all across America, but as well as in Europe. She's performed with she made her debut at the Carnegie Hall with the Strauss Elektra, led by Daniel Barenboim. How do you pronounce his name? Barenboim?
Barenboim.
Barenboim, yes. As well as she's performed for the Royal Philharmonic. She's performed for the Prague Philharmonic. She's performed for the NATO Chicago Summit. She's performed for the Kennedy Center. I mean, she's been across a lot of stages, just like her husband here, her counterpart. And I am just so excited that they decided to give us a little of their time here this evening at Enter the Room. Can we give them a round of applause? Yeah. So, how are you all doing? I know you've been really busy. I'm sorry, go ahead. What did you say?
Great introduction. Thank you.
And we're doing well, so thank you for that as well.
Awesome. So, okay, what I also meant to mention, failed to mention, is that you are the goddaughter of late Miss Roberta Martin. How was it having a grandmother such as her? I mean, not a grandmother, but a godmother such as Roberta Martin.
I was so young. I think I was 2 years old, but that That was at Mount Pisgah Baptist Church in Chicago, which is known for the gospel icons that came through there. Pastor Joseph Wells was the pastor, and my dad was the associate minister and the assistant pastor serving under Pastor Wells at the time when he and my dad got married and time went by. I was born. And Roberta Martin, for those that don't know, she was a pianist, composer, arranger, publisher of music. She was a soprano, and she was the director of the Roberta Martin Singers. So there she was singing away, conducting and playing and arranging beautiful music. If you know things like He Knows How Much You Can Bear, that's one of her pieces. There are many. You can Google her. But my father knew at an early age that I was responding to music. And they said 3 years old that I was standing on the pews and imitating, who was directing the choir. And so Dad approached her. He said, do you see something special in my daughter? And she became my godmother. I remember running over to the house, but as a toddler. But and she passed away before I grew up. But yeah, it was very
wow.
to have an icon like that be my godmother.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, growing up, because a lot of people, for those who don't know, Chicago is considered the gospel capital. Is it still considered the gospel capital of the world? Because that's where it all, Professor Thomas A. Dorsey. And so, for those who don't know, we have Detroit has Motown, Chicago has the gospel. And so, growing up in that kind of environment, you learn because you grew up in church. And like I was speaking to Rodrick, and he so eloquently described how in his upbringing, he had the sacred as well as the secular. Was it kind of like that for you too as well?
Yes, my parents always played music and took us to live concerts, and then there was church, there was school, but their backgrounds alone, Dad, before he accepted his calling to the gospel ministry, he was a trombonist. So he hailed from Des Moines, Iowa. So he was in the Drake University band, he was in the Army Air Force band, then he was on the road with the Thad Jones jazz band. And Thad Jones, trumpeter. And so he was playing his trombone all of these years and had a beautiful baritonal voice. And then my mother hails from Winona, Mississippi, and she was singing soprano in the Russ College a cappella choir, and they toured throughout the states as they do to this day. And so the both of them, they were musical. So, music was always being, we were exposed to, my sister, my older sister, Renee, and I. So then they signed me up for piano and organ lessons, and it just took off from there. I was always singing, I was always playing.
Wow. So, how did you, how did you mesh into, did you have the classical, because I know, Roderick, you had said that I think you said your dad was like the liturgical, he played liturgical music in your church. Was that the same for you, Alfreda?
Anthems, spirituals, and what am I leaving out? Hymns, gospel music, the contemporary as well as the gospel or
wow. And so from having such a foundation, it was just only propping you up to eventually when did you discover that you want to be an opera singer?
Well, when I was in school and in the school choirs as well as church, school, high school, I knew that I had a range, and I knew just you're sitting there, you're wearing so many different hats when you're a pastor's kid, because the older father accepted a pastorate, the First Mennonite Church. So there I'm preparing preparing the choirs, the children's choir, the adult choir, the inspirational choir, which was the age in between, and then I'm running around and wearing all these other hats, and then so I'm conducting them, I'm preparing them, and Dad loved, like I said earlier, plethora of music. He wanted the anthems, he wanted the hymns, he wanted the spirituals, he wanted the gospel music,
Everything.
traditional.
That is,
Yeah, and so between that and school, that just caused me to develop, and I always loved multi-genres. So I sang on school talent shows, etc., concerts, and then it was in the concert choir at Lindblom, sang for my graduation, and then went on to Roosevelt University, Chicago Musical College called then, and now they call it Chicago College of the Performing Arts. And
Chicago.
yeah.
And you currently sit on the board. Is it that you sit on the board of both, or one or the other?
Well, they're the same. Roosevelt University has colleges within it. You know, you could major in science if you wanted to, but I'm in the music school. I was in the music school. So I serve on their Chicago College of the Performing Arts Advisory Board. Now, 2010, I believe, I was invited. So that's a full circle moment. But it's all, so studied classical music there. Formal, because before that I was singing it, but then I got the formal training there.
Right.
So Henry Vogel was the one who invited you to join the board. Henry Vogel, who was the former president of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra.
Wait a minute, say who invited her?
Henry Vogel.
Oh, okay.
He over Chicago Symphony Orchestra for many years.
And he was the one who invited you to join the board, the
League of American Orchestras. Yeah. I'm probably saying that wrong, but he's awesome, and he was a dean. He has retired now from Roosevelt University, Chicago College of the Performing Arts as a dean. But I think he's still probably doing master classes and doing a little teaching, and they have, you know, and sister schools. And I'm amazed that he was really excited about.
Amazing. Now I got to segue over to my brother here. I thought about Sundays. Well, I went and saw it on opening night. It was Saturday, actually. Saturday opening night. And I had thought about, what do you do to prepare yourself, like before the day of the show? You know, of course you rehearse, you practice, you've done all the preparation, but on the day of the show, what do you do mentally or spiritually that, you know, settle do you ever get nervous? You don't strike me as the type of person that gets nervous, but do you ever get nervous, or what's your mantra, as they always say?
Saturday when we opened at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion, the double bill, Highway 1 USA and Dead's Fair, which I played the title character or the title role in that opera. I am the Dwarf. On Saturday, I had a normal day. I got a lot of rest, drank a lot of water, steamed my face. I have a steamer and things like that, normal stuff. And eat. We just talk and keep it real simple. And I think one of the things I've discovered for myself recently in the last couple of years is that I try to find a way to focus my mind on the environment in which I'm going to engage to be an artist in. And what I mean specifically is start looking at very specific things I need to be very conscientious of that night of the performance. So on Saturday night, I was really focused on training my mind to be very attentive to the environment at the Dorothy Chandler. I mean, Maestro Conlon, it's an unbelievable world-class conductor with that unbelievable orchestra. There are certain things that he's giving me in the pit when he's conducting. On Saturday,
Mm-hmm.
I put my mind in those spaces to see how he moves his hands, to try to figure out where his visions are going to be. And I try to pre-program my mind to see those things before they happen,
Mm-hmm.
and say, hold it. Is he not going to extend that line? He's going to pause. And I try to imagine how am I going to respond as an artist in those moments. So it's almost like a see it, do it, and believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
happened. I saw it early that day. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to do it, and I believe in what I'm doing because it's been already put in me early that day that it was going to happen that way. So I really pre-program myself, not only for success, but I pre-program myself to tell the story with that kind of focus in mind, because it's really between myself and the conductor and the orchestra to find out what are those new things that may show up Saturday night at opening. And believe me, there's always something new that shows up, like you and the crowd.
Right. Is it, you know, is it when you're up there on stage, do you you know, like when I have performed on stage, like one night it can be a very reserved crowd, but then once the performance is over, they're like, "Ooh," you know, like how we were when you all were done, we were. And then there can be a crowd that's just they just, you know, they're call and response as the show is going on. Have you been in situations since even doing this, you know, has the crowd, or just for the whole time the crowd is just watching and waiting to the very end before they like really react?
Well, one thing that did happen at Dead Spared at LA Opera Saturday night for the opening, there were a few moments that not only myself, but the cast found that were interesting that hadn't happened before. And the introduction of laughter and humor at some very moments. For example, when Infanta decides to be very nasty and she does something physically. It even happened at the dress rehearsal last Thursday with the children. There was some laughter, and we found that to be interesting because we said, well, wait a minute, that's a very sensitive moment. But some people found it funny, and we weren't prepared for that. And I knew
Um,
I had a reaction. So did Erica Petricelli. She had a reaction, as well as Gita, Emily McGee. And we were all kind of going, well, this is a different kind of viewer, a different kind of listener. And it doesn't mean it's a
right,
positive. It just means it's different. And so that
right,
humor, humor
right.
can mask sadness.
Right. Because one of the scenes, if I may, and I'll just say this, is when the whip came out. And when he popped the whip, you know, some people laugh. And then, but then, you know, there's a snap again, I guess. Was there a snap? Yeah. And then you're like, you're not looking at it too funny. You ain't looking at it funny no more. You know what I mean? So I had wondered that because in such a big place, while you're up there, you know, different audience, especially for different nights, can give off a certain vibe. And does that, you know, affect the performer on stage? Does it make them even more animated, or you just stay like you've always been doing your rehearsal? So I was curious about that. So Alfreda, let me ask you this. What is your mantra? Do you take time out? I mean, by you growing up, or both of you growing up in church, do you say a solemn prayer, or do you just quiet down, take a good nap before before you go up? Or I mean, what is your routine before you get
Well,
up?
I don't get the nap, but if I can sleep in, I will sleep in. But when I'm in the dressing room and they've already called half an hour and you know, and they're about to say places. By that time I will have prayed, and you know, I like to center myself and I'll go through certain passages of what I'm singing, things that I just want to, you know, check. And
Mhm.
and you do the warm-up process, and yes, and we eat something because you need fuel. I'm not
Right. Yeah.
that likes to eat before I sing, and I don't do it right before running out of the dressing room. I do it 30 minutes before,
Right.
or 40
Right.
before. And the water, yes, we
Mm-hmm.
also have water near on stage. The stage manager has it. If it's something that's staged, then you can't have it out there with you, but there are places backstage where you do have the water. So but definitely prayer, praise, worship before
Right.
and I do ask that the Holy Spirit sing through me, and that
Right.
people's lives touched and changed, and
Right.
people come transported. They have their own problems, and you want them to get a release in the theater. Put that down, put those problems down, and just enjoy a night of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be life changing. So
Mm-hmm.
there.
So I'm sorry. So you use your artistry, both of you, and in some ways you artistically minister in an indirect or direct way through song, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, am I correct?
Yeah.
And let me ask you this: when you, well, two things. Has there ever been a time when you were on stage and in the middle of your song, the mic just died? I mean, have you ever experienced something like that?
Yeah,
Mm.
or either you get some feedback.
It all depends on what music you're working in. In this particular case, when we're singing operatically, we don't have
Have
any
a
mic.
mic, yeah.
So we're producing that
Oh,
sound.
because the acoustics,
Acoustic
Yeah,
the
right.
acoustic.
The
are from our
acoustics.
body, yeah.
And
Diaphragmatic muscles, etc., and resonance chambers, the formant. So we're sending it out into the house.
yeah,
You
and
send
we're
in,
we're working in an orchestra, so that's all acoustical. So I would think that the only impediment that really surfaces on a regular basis in that acoustic environment could be dust from the
mm,
stage, or something that
mm,
happens, lighting, or there's a lot of movement when the chorus or the dancers come on, and they're moving, and so air starts to change on the stage. Those things are normal in an operatic setting. But when you talk about mics, amplification, yeah, if that happens, it's happened a few times
Oh,
where the mics didn't work and you were with live sound,
yeah.
and you just have to, and
You have to keep going.
you
The
have to,
show must go on. And their technical staff and crew is back there tap dancing as fast as they can to get the
right,
problem
yeah.
right,
And
out.
the audience knows. They like the mics went out, but then they appreciate the artist who can then still take stage, still deliver something in the moment. They go, oh, well, it's obvious we're not turning any knobs here. This is really coming from their body. They're really singing
right,
those. It's
exactly.
out of my clear that they're very talented and have something to offer tonight. And they appreciate that. Yeah.
That, that's wonderful. Oh my goodness. So by you all performing extensively around the world, um, you know, have you ever performed for royalty?
Yeah. The Mandela family in
That's
South
right.
Africa. Um,
Yeah.
delegation of Miss World to participate in the fundraising endeavors for feeding people
Rise Against
hunger.
Hunger.
Nelson Mandela's
Yeah.
platform, and his grandson and the Mandela family and
They had a gala there, and
the Miss World people brought us with them to participate in going to a place, putting food in bags, put them in
Mhm.
boxes, and then we would
creches, which
crushes.
were
Yeah.
places where this children were being. It's like a daycare center for children, and preschool. So we showed up with boxes of food for them. And then we
So
would,
you,
oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
We and the Mineral delegates were, we were
Mandela.
putting food in these boxes and then sealing up the boxes and getting them ready to go to different areas in South Africa. And our first stop was Soweto, I believe.
So
So
wait, so
was it,
Fundland.
oh, we had some of their ancestral lands. We visited. They took us basically on a tour.
Mandela
The
family.
place was precious, right,
Yeah.
that happened with
Wow.
and
So,
and yeah.
someone says bravo for your humanitarian work. That was from Rutakin Tomi. I hope I pronounced your name right.
Right.
So
That,
let me ask you this. This goes to the both of you. How did you did you ever feel like that feeling of I've arrived, in your career where you felt like you've reached a certain plateau?
no,
You kidding me?
no.
Ah, that's a good one.
That is a continual journey. You know, are 6 feet up, 6 feet this side the ground, right? You're always learning, you're always growing, you're developing, and your craft is going. The craft is also developing and growing. It's funny because I know you're looking at us saying, "Hey, you guys are of a certain age. What do you mean development and growth?" But it to happen, and even our voices have changed since
Oh, okay.
years ago. They were lighter lyrical sounds, and now they're more spinto dramatic sounds. And I was held in for Rod in this role, and it's pretty noticeable because he did Der Zwerg, the Dwarf, 15, 16 years ago at LA Opera, and here he is returning to it. And a lot of the reviews are saying that they hear that different quality. He has more power, and he plays the role with a different sensibility. There's some maturity and Spear. I was telling him earlier today, you played that role more playful because he is a gift to the infanta, the
Right.
prince. He's
Right.
they say in the libretto that he's a toy, so he played it more playful, and
Right.
is more he is more stately, and he is
Yes.
more princely and more dignified, and just a little bit more what's that word I said, mature.
Right. Well, it's they saying these negative things about him, but what I loved about this role is that he didn't see himself that way. He saw himself as royalty, and he was dressed like royalty.
Exactly.
Regardless, he dressed the part, and he carried himself in that manner. It wasn't until when he looked at, even when because he was looking at something, he didn't realize that was himself through the knife, as he said, because he was like, who is this following me? Who is this person? That ain't me.
Evil specter following me, and
Right.
the reflection of his blade,
Right.
sword,
He didn't.
and the
Right. He didn't.
passed by, so he just thought it was an evil specter following him. He didn't know that was himself.
Right.
But
He didn't.
I love how you brought that out, that point that until he knew, had seen his reflection in a mirror in front of him, held it up. Before that, he did not care what others thought or said, and
No, he didn't.
he had his own view of himself, and
I,
it was a
And
confident view, and a very, he's like, I'm royalty,
well,
right. He didn't. And even though, I mean, he was sent you know, what's sad is because he has been at sea for 10 years, you know, at sea. And even in that condition, he just didn't see himself as anything less than, you know, I'm a prince and you know, I'm coming from the Sultan. And, he just, which, you know, and that's how it is a lot of times. Some people think of themselves a certain way, and then, you know, you had, as Michael Jackson say, the man in the mirror, you know, look at yourself. But in this way, that mirror was used in a negative way because he actually had a healthy view of himself. It was just the other people that were looking at the outer exterior and not looking at the heart of him.
Exactly, which is what God looks at.
Exactly.
Man looks at the exterior and God looks at the heart.
He
But
looked at them.
Such a lesson to be learned from that, because he was the most humanitarian of all. He loved
Yes.
others as he loved himself as well.
Yes.
And, you know, he just wanted to make everybody happy, make them laugh and spread love. And he was willing to die. He said that he would die for her love, right? And for
Yeah.
and then he does that. And he makes us feel. He is the one character that warms our heart, makes us feel. We run the gamut of emotions through his character.
Yeah.
We cry,
Yeah.
we feel, we empathize with Derek Fair, the dwarf. So
could you share with the listeners the summary of the story? Because there are people who haven't seen it yet who are coming to see it. And we're not really telling the story, but we want people to know why it's so important to address what it is that took place at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in LA Opera's new production of The Dwarf and Highway 1 USA.
right.
I implore you to take the time out to go see The Dwarf. First of all, it's a fantastic production. It's aesthetically, you know, it's nice. And, you know, I like pomps and circumstance anyway. That fairy tale, you know, you have the princess and all of this, and it's kind of humorous. There's some humorous parts. The dancers, you know, when they was bringing out the gifts to present to her, that scene was funny because they were very good dancers, but they were also over the top presenting their gifts, and that was hilarious. But the gist of the story is, and is that you have this man, because he was a man, who sees this young woman who's smitten by her beauty, and he, you know, he doesn't think he's not good enough for her because of his perception of himself, even though he is viewed by the outside world as being less than, but he didn't view himself that way. And I think that's an important lesson, role model. You have to love yourself. You have to think well of yourself. And I think when you think well of yourself, a lot of times people approach you differently. You know, they're not so much as dismissive, and if they are, a lot of times that's because they're struggling within something within themselves that they don't know how to deal with. And the thing about the dwarf is that he was beautiful. He exposed the ugliness of those around him by him just being his authentic, loving self. And he carried himself in a dignified way. He carried himself in an eloquent way. I mean, he looked great, but he carried himself in an eloquent way. He was genuine. He had love. He was pure in his heart, unlike the infanta, the princess, and the court. But that one lady who, she was the attendant, I guess you could say, the
Ita,
yes.
one of the
She started off being like the rest, but then as time went on, she began to, her character, she began to change because she could see, and maybe that was the maturity of her because she was a grown woman. She saw the realness and the love that he had for this young maiden, and she saw the beauty in him. And I think the thing about the dwarf is you can always do your self-inventory by looking at that story. Are you like those who ostracize people who maybe looked a little different, but yet had done nothing to you? Or are you like the dwarf, regardless of what people think of you, you continue to spread love, joy, and be your authentic, beautiful self? And so you can take something from the story. I say that, let me tell you what it also did for me. After watching it, I said, oh, I gotta come to the opera more often. Before seeing the dwarf, I had seen the Barber of Seville, and I love that opera. But after seeing the dwarf, I was sitting there and I was like, I gotta give me some season tickets. I gotta do something. And it's, if you've never been to the opera before, go. If you love music, if maybe you've never been to the opera, maybe you think, oh, it's just too slow, but because the opera, there's a story that's being told. It's drama, it's exciting, there's some humor, and it makes you, it's an amazing thing too, is even though it's in a different language, after all, you know what's going on. You get it. There were subtitles.
Super titles, so you get to can get in.
There were subtitles.
Even though they're singing in Italian, German, French, Russian, Czech,
right,
on and on. So there's many.
Right.
And I'm up there because those that are singing in English, just in case you missed a few words, they have it there for the English operas as well.
Yes.
But there's a wonderful season, something for everyone. Come to LA Opera. They have La Traviata coming, and some mainstay operas that people love: Così fan tutte, Mozart, La Traviata's Verdi. So there's going to be quite a few.
They have a lot of. They have a lot of art. I said, go ahead.
I said, but for now, until the 17th, definitely see Der Zwerg or the Dwarf. And USA, because just wonderful casts and wonderful work. And I have to applaud my husband. I am biased. But
I think we all are. We was that crowd. That crowd was. That's why I don't know if you've seen the video, but I panned because I wanted to show the audience. It was a standing ovation. I mean, everybody was, by the time you was done, everybody was like, there was this woman that was sitting next to me, and the whole time she was like this. And I was just laughing on the inside because I was like, yeah, girl, get it all in, get it all in. And, I played a snippet of the bowing and the hand applause on my Facebook page. And to me, it's very touching to see men from our community who are putting thumbs up, hearts, and I think what it is, because they see somebody like them getting accolades, getting the applauses. That's encouraging. And then, even though, as my mother used to say, because she grew up in Mississippi, she used to say that when someone would achieve something out of the community, it's like everybody celebrated. Because even though they may not have been able to attend that college or been able to run, in the Olympics or whatever, but because they were from that area, it brought a sense of pride and made you feel good about yourself. And I think that's what, when you came out to bow, Derek, myself and others, probably I saw some, those, because I know you have been singing at different churches, and people probably from the congregations as well as a general audience. You feel good to see somebody that represents you, because we know who we are and we know what we come with. but it's nice when other people can see it and acknowledge it and embrace it. And that's what you have done in the Dwarf, as well as any other productions you have, in the same way with you, Alfreda, and with Highway 1 USA. We know Nicole Houston Lane and is it Norman Garrett, the two main stars of Highway? Yeah, that was a fabulous. I mean, all of it. And Kenesha Shaw, who directed it, was all fabulous. I mean, I can't stress it enough. I'm sorry?
Chaz Williams Ali, who was the bad guy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, right, Chess. He was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. He was. He had a beautiful voice. They all did. You know, it's kind of, look, I was sitting there doing the chorus, and I was like, I wonder if I could sing it like a little opera choir. It made me think like, oh, now, you know, I was like, man, they sound like, you know, you begin to think. But it was fabulous. On that note, what I want to do is I want to play a clip. And if we have time, because I know you all are on a tight schedule, if we have time, do we have time for a question or two? Do you all have time for that? Sure. Okay. Sure. So what I'm going to do for right now is that I'm going to play a clip or two, not the whole thing, but part of it, so they can kind of like hear. I'll play one of yours, Alfred, and I'll play one of yours, Roderick, and then we'll come back, and then we'll take a few questions, and then we'll close it out.
Thank you. Yeah.
We can tell the listeners to go, you know, to Google Hallelujah Broadway, which was the Prague PBS special, and Alfreda Burke, Climb Every Mountain, and then they can hear it on their own devices. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more clearer.
Yeah.
Filmed with Linda Eder
and Anthony Kearns
from Broadway, and Anthony Kearns from the Three Irish Tenors. And yours truly, and Alfreda. And I can tell you a story about that, which is important. It's how you're able to allow art to work in a way to help you feel better. Reverend Burke had just passed, and we were filming. Our father was. We were filming, and we were just coming from Australia, and way to Prague. So we flew from Australia to Prague, and Alfreda could not get through You Never Walk Alone. She could not just sing. She would break down and cry, and she just didn't know. So the night of the recording of filming the television show, she finally mustered up enough strength emotionally and mentally to sing the piece You Never Walk Alone. And it's such an important work, the song itself, because there's so many people who find those words, that text, to be so important to their personal lives.
Yes.
And they're not alone, you know, and that was a very good performance. And then she's saying that Climb Every Mountain. So it was a very, I think, cathartic and important moment for us as husband and wife filming the PBS special. But it was also a much needed experience because we had just lost our father.
Right. You know, you're a human. So whatever emotion you're physically, mentally, emotionally, that goes as well, and it affects your art and how you tell the story. You know, all of life is the stage, and we're always telling. If we work with students in a master class, we say, tell the story, be your authentic self, be who you are, and give you more depth in what you're in your story, because it's real, you know, it's organic, authentic you telling that story, and you don't separate yourself from the character or from their humanity or their lack of humanity, you know, that's part of what we do. So yeah, singing You Never Walk Alone was part of it. When my it passed at Detroit Opera House, about to a piece. Well, we won't title that piece, but the piano sets me up with beautiful. Alvin Waddles gives beautiful.
Right. That's big.
To stick in the introduction, my soul, and I got the biggest lump in my throat, waiting, and then I tried to come in, and it felt like an eternity, but I swallowed that lump, and then I began to sing. So that's
Sing, right.
Who you are to the stage as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's
beautiful. Johnny Harris, did I pronounce your name right? I hope I did. Said, nice to see you. I'll be going to see the show. So, yay, nice. That's so. Before we close out, I want to know: if you have any questions, now is the time to. If you want to ask Rodrick or Alfreda a question directly, just let me know. And then I'll bring you into the room and you can talk to meet these two superstars right here.
I did post a question earlier about 5 or 10 minutes, and it's in the chat area question.
Okay, let me scroll up. Let's see. Someone said, hi everyone. Let's see. These two performers, in my opinion, are royal inside and out. Absolutely. So the question is, hi, Coppernick Picks. So what is it like reprising the role after so many years of perspective and world events? Does it affect how you treat the musical line? I guess that's for Rodrick.
Yeah. In this regard, this is the most interesting question. When I performed the Dwarf in 2008, Barack Obama was running for president. And when I finished the performance, one member of the board said to me, you know he's running for president, don't you? And I thought for a second, because I said, well, yeah, I know he's running for president. But then I had to calibrate my thinking, because the statement he made, he's running for president, is in conjunction with me coming out of the box. The comes out of the box, American. Now, this is a great question, because at that time, the world was different in 2008. The political environment, and no one of color was ever the president of the United States Constitution. Here I am in the title, singing in German, coming out of the box, playing the Dwarf, and yet the possible leader of the new world could be African American, had never been experienced before.
The polarity, yeah.
Yeah. So for them to be out of that box in 2008 was directly attributed to Barack Obama running for president. Now that's an interesting perspective, to sit in the house at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion and watch a black man come out that box and play a dwarf, while another black man running for president, one of the most powerful seats in the world. That's a juxtaposition that is, you cannot ignore as an artist on stage, because you are in that political environment. Today in 2024, there is a climate in America, rightly or wrongly, where social media have given people an opportunity to express themselves, rightly or wrongly, and to have voice. And the odd thing about it today is that recovered voices is giving voice to the voiceless.
Mm-hmm.
And people are having opinions, rightly or wrongly, about whether that's cool or not cool. And you have history meeting individual success. I'm black. I'm playing the title role. That's an individual success. But I'm also black, playing the title role in an environment where people like myself and other people from other ethnic groups have felt that they have been have been treated a certain way, like they have been treated like this. So historically, when they watch the show today, they have a different of opinion about me playing the role. Then not everybody's happy playing the role because I represent another kind of experience, and it's not positive for certain people. So the juxtaposition for me today when I play the roles, now I have to think in terms of today and say, wait a minute, I have another responsibility. I have to say it's cool to play the dwarf as a black man. I have to say it's not cool. It's important that I establish artistically the credibility of Alexander Zemlinsky, the Jewish man, whose voice was silent. And by the Third Reich. So that juxtaposition to me for today, I have to be very careful not to articulate more of my black experience over the experience of a man whose voice was silenced. I'm still a human being. I'm still living and working in art form. This man was oppressed and suppressed by the Third Reich. So my response as artist today is a little different than what it was 16 years ago with Barack Obama running for president. So what I'm really trying to say, I'm very much aware of the political climate today. I also understand how important it is to be an artist to say something that's not going to solve all the problems of the world, let alone the vicissitudes that come to all the ethnicities, but artistically pick a point of truth and honor in what it means to have dignity and integrity and stand up for those who are voiced like William Grant and Alexander. That's still the responsibility of art today.
Yes.
It is in the vocal line. There is a vocal line because the climate is different today than it was then.
Right.
And there's a stories. You know, it's funny that the cast is actually the person can really execute on right and tell the story the highest standard. Oh, how can they get the story across? So they are actors, right? So,
yeah, he is an actor. After all, Rodrick is an actor.
Oh my, this African American man is coming out of this box. This black guy coming out of this box and being laughed at, ridiculed. He's being open, and I can't take it, you know. But it is a story being told, and yes, there's injustice in the world, right?
Yeah.
There's social injustice. People are victims. People are scandalized.
Yes.
So you do feel these things and say, "Oh, how they're white." But they're all is done and thus we live at humanitarian bottom line. That is the moral of the story. We should actually be more like the dwarf who was beautiful inside rather than beautiful on the outside. So there are more to be had. And
absolutely. Well, okay, now we answer that question. Well, I'm not going to take any more of your time. I would play the other song, but if the sound is not coming right, I want them to get the pure sound. So I would say follow Rodrick Dixon on Instagram. Rodrick and Alfreda Burke, they both have links on YouTube, and you can just Google them, and tons of songs and YouTube links will pop up. On that note, because Instagram is about to cut me off.
I'm on Facebook. I need to do more.
And she's on Facebook. Wait, I'm going to come right back because they're cutting down the clock, so don't go nowhere.